Hey everybody, thank you for joining me for video number 3 of Stones of Remembrance. People often wonder, well, where's all the Bible verses during the Stones of Remembrance series? Everything we're doing in Stones of Remembrance is based on the biblical account in Joshua chapter 3, 4, and 5. I even mentioned Sunday. My assignment this week was to read the whole chapter of Joshua chapter 3. I'm just going to read you a few verses. Joshua 3 verse 1 says, "Early the next morning, Joshua and all the Israelites left Acacia and arrived at the banks of the Jordan River, where they camped before crossing." Now this sounds a little bit familiar. Do you remember when Moses brought the children of Israel out of Egypt and they came to a body of water? You remember what had happened? For those of us who are my age, we remember Charlton Heston playing Moses and the 10 Commandments. If you're my children's age, if you're a millennial, my kids didn't see Charlton Heston. They saw the Steven Spielberg version, animated version called Prince of Egypt. Very biblically accurate, great video to show your grandkids or your children if they're that age. So Moses is leading the children of Israel out of Egypt right after the plagues, the 10 plagues that happened. And the last plague was the angel of death. And the angel of death comes all over Egypt and takes the firstborn of every animal and every family. Unless they took the blood of the lamb and they applied the blood of the lamb to the doorpost and the lintel, that's the board across the top, and the doorpost. And if the blood of the lamb was applied, then the angel of death would pass over that house and that child would be spared. In fact, when Jesus and his disciples were at the Last Supper, or the night before he was betrayed, they were celebrating the Passover meal. Passover is all about going all the way back to Egypt and remembering what God did when the last plague, when the angel of death came across and killed the firstborn of every Egyptian family, and also killed the firstborn of all of their animals. So they come out of Egypt. In fact, Pharaoh wakes up and says, "Here, take all this gold, take all these jewels, take all this silver, and get out of here." And they kick them out. And they run to the Red Sea. But all of a sudden, Pharaoh starts to get cold feet. He starts to have buyer's remorse. He's like, wait a minute, we can't let all our slaves go. And besides that, they've looted us. They've got our gold and our silver and our jewels. And so he fires up all the chariots. He gets his army, and they start heading towards Moses and all the Hebrews. And you know, from Charlton Heston, holds up the staff at the Red Sea. And what does God do? God parts the Red Sea. And there's wall of water on this side, a wall of water on this side, and the Israelites, a million of them, and all of their livestock, they go through on dry ground. And the chariots are running, and Pharaoh is coming, and they come right down it, and then God covers them up and wipes out the entire Egyptian army. In fact, there's archaeological relics, there's chariot wheels at the bottom of the Red Sea there that have proven that this has happened. And then the Israelites, they take about a 2-week walk down to what was the edge of the Promised Land. They send in 12 spies. The spies look around and are like, wait a minute, there's giants here. All but 2 spies say, we shouldn't go in. Joshua and Caleb are the only 2 that want to go in to the Promised Land. They said, God has promised the land, let's go in. So they vote on it. Can you imagine that? I mean, God tells them to go do something, and they're like, we're afraid, there's giants, and they vote on it 10-2, and they decide they're not going to go in. They're too afraid. There's giants there. So God says, well, then you're banished to the desert for 40 years. And they're like, wait, we changed our mind. And God's like, no. You're going to go. You're going to go in when I say. And only two people, Joshua and Caleb, are the only 2 who are now 40 years later there. One of the things we learned that's kind of crazy is Later we learn that the people who were there, when the spies go in to go around Jericho, the people in Jericho said, hey, when you guys were here 40 years ago, why didn't you come in? Why did you leave? He said, we were so afraid, because even though they didn't have iPhones, even though they didn't have the internet, they knew what had happened to the Egyptian army. Word spread like wildfire that there's a real God in town, and those people are God's people. Don't mess with those. And the people in Jericho were saying, hey, we were willing to just lay down our arms, and we were willing to just surrender as soon as you walked in. Because they didn't obey God, they spent 40 years wandering around. But they had been talking about this promised land, talking about the promised land for all that time. And their kids and their grandkids are now about to go into the promised land. Imagine the excitement, the electricity that's happened there. Let me read you verses 7, 8, 13, and 17, because you're going to read the whole chapter this week, but I'm going to highlight it. It says, the Lord told Joshua, today I will begin to make you great in the eyes of all the Israelites. Now they will know that I am with you, just as I was with Moses. Give these instructions to the priests who are carrying the Ark of the Covenant. When you reach the banks of the Jordan River, take a few steps into the river and stop. The priests will be carrying the Ark of the Lord of all the earth, and when their feet touch the water, the flow of the water will be cut off upstream, and the river will pile up in one heap. Meanwhile, the priests who were carrying the Ark of the Lord's covenant stood on dry ground in the middle of the riverbed as people passed by them. They waited there until everyone had crossed by on dry ground. So here's what happens. God, this time he didn't put up a wall of water on each side and they walked through with water. What God did was he dammed up the river 17 miles upstream in a town called Adam. And he sends the priests in. He says, this time you're going to have to take a step of faith first. And as soon as they step into the water, and I kind of picture it's ankle deep, God puts his hand or he blows on, however he, force field, however he did it, he dams up the river, and slowly the river goes down. As they're walking in, though, it's like ankle deep, then shin deep, then knee deep, then waist deep, then chest deep, and I don't think the priests are going, is it going down? Is it going down? How deep is this going to get? And finally the river starts to go down to dry ground, and they're standing there, and all of these people walk through on dry ground. 1 million men, plus their wives, their children, and all their livestock. It was a holy ground kind of experience. I will tell you what happened next. It all began with God speaking to just this one guy, Joshua. That's the story of SCC too. God spoke to me. He told me to start our church. I'm so glad I was obedient. Listen, I hope you join me tomorrow as we pick up where we left off. God bless.